everyone. That was the solo to Brother by the somewhat unknown jazz fusion guitarist Carlos Rios, with Canadian pop, jazz rock, R&B legend Gino Vannelli coming in as my number 38 greatest underrated, underappreciated, and/or unknown guitar solo of all time. This one covers all three of those criteria, I do believe. Now, for sure, it's underappreciated, but it would especially be noteworthy for the unknown aspect of it. Not so much for the solo itself in particular, but for the player of said solo. Carlos Rios is hardly a household name in guitar circles, and judging from his nearly absent footprint on the internet, it only goes to solidify that assertion. I had a heck of a time digging up any information about this guy. The dude doesn't even have a wiki page, for crying out loud, despite the fact that he's accrued quite the resume as a touring and session player throughout the years. With the likes of Fleetwood Mac, a heck of a lot of work within the solo career of Stevie Nicks especially, Chick Corea, Lionel Richie, Dave Grusin, Boz Scaggs, Herb Alpert, amongst many, many others. But most importantly to the topic at hand with Gino Vannelli in the late 70s. A rather interesting story with regards to how Carlos came to play with Gino Vannelli in the first place. Carlos, as a 21-year-old guitar player, was a student under the jazz great Larry Carlton and was just starting to make a name for himself in the West Coast jazz guitar scene. At this same point in the 70s, he himself was already a big fan of Canadian pop, R&B, jazz fusion rock artist Gino Vannelli, who up to this point had released 3 or 4 popular albums in Canada, but hadn't really made much of a dent in the United States or internationally. Carlos had all of Gino's albums at this point and loaned his copy of the latest Gino Vannelli album to a friend of his for a few days. A week or so later, that friend called and talked to Carlos's mother on the phone, as Carlos wasn't home at the time, and asked his mom when Carlos wanted him to return the new Gino Vannelli album. Now, judging from Carlos Rios' name, I'm assuming that he is of Hispanic descent, and that maybe English wasn't his mother's first language. So when the message got relayed to Carlos from his mother, she had told him that Gino Vannelli himself had called about work on his new album. Excitedly, Carlos contacted his guitar teacher, Larry Carlton, and asked him if he knew how to get in contact with Gino Vannelli, as Gino didn't leave a contact number with his mother. That goes without saying. Larry made a few phone calls and got Gino's number and gave it to Carlos. Obviously, there was no phone call from Gino Vannelli in the first place, but as coincidence would have it, he was looking for a new guitar player and decided to give the young Carlos an audition. And much to Carlos's delight, he got the gig, probably because he was so bloody talented. An opportunity very unlikely to have occurred without that miscommunication with his mother. Cool story. Now, I've got a confession to make. I am a big Gino Vannelli fan, have been since I was about 10 or 11 years old. Even throughout my metalhead and hard rock loving years as a teenager and into my 20s, I always had an affinity for Gino's music. Even the softer radio friendly fare like I Just Want to Stop and Wheels of Life and Living Inside Myself and the like. But I especially liked his more adventurous jazz fusion, almost approaching prog rock affairs, such as the track we're discussing today, Brother to Brother. Now, Gino's biggest radio hits, and the ones he's most well known for, are rather soft rock affairs and or easy listening pop rock, like Black Cars and Wild Horses in the 80s. So he's pretty much gained a reputation over time as a kind of a soft rock balladeer or pop artist. And thus, as a result, I've taken plenty of teasing and ribbing over the years from friends and bandmates for my love of the music of Gino Vannelli. probably because of my being this long-haired metalhead hard rocker, it seemed rather out of character for me at the time, I guess. But I, for one, am not ashamed. I like him. What can I say? I find it kind of hard to explain, really, but when it comes right down to it, I think that it's his absolutely incredible and powerful voice that really is the key to my affection for Gino Vannelli's music. The man can really sing. Now, with regards to tracks like Brother to Brother, there's really no mystery involved whatsoever as to why I like him so much. It's an utterly brilliant track and a highlight of his entire career, blending elements of soul, R&B, funk, pop, jazz fusion, and even prog rock. It's a tour de force of songwriting and musicianship for everyone involved. I read a comment on YouTube with regards to this track, and it kind of hit the nail on the head. It stated that this track was like throwing together Earth, Wind and Fire, Santana, George Benson, and Rush, with a lead singer who kind of looked like Elvis but had hair like Robert Plant. I thought that was a rather hilarious description, but fairly accurate, at least musically. I don't think Gino Vannelli looks very much like Elvis at all, but he did have epic hair back in the 70s. Much of it on his chest, which he loved to show off at pretty much every opportunity that he could. But it's the musicianship that really stands out on this track. Hell, the whole album is remarkable in that regard. Incredible virtuosity on the bass from Jimmy Haslett, and from Mark Craney on drums. And Carlos absolutely shines on nearly every track, except maybe one or two of the softer radio-friendly tracks, like I Just Want to Stop and Wheels of Life. But nearly every other track has some fantastic guitar work and soloing on it. This solo in Brother to Brother in particular probably being the standout, of course. Now, I'm not a jazz guitar player, and with that said, I'm not ashamed to say that while I can play this solo, I don't quite understand much of it from a standpoint of theory. Shifting scales every 3 or 4 seconds and nailing target notes over exotic jazz chord progressions like dominant 7th and flat 9th chords and ultra dominant and 5th of chords and suspended 11th and super sus chords and so on and so forth. You know, like, I don't know how many times throughout learning this solo did I look down at my fingers and think, what in the hell is he doing now? You know, like switching scales like on the fly, jumping from natural minor to melodic minor to major scales, and then grabbing off notes that aren't even in any of these scales, but, you know, are target notes that are being played within the underlying chordal structures, all interspersed with lots of chromatic runs, you know, complicated and heady stuff, you know, but that's jazz guitar for you. And all the while doing some of it extremely bloody fast. You know, the scale runs in this thing are quick, you know, and really technical to play. Had some real difficulty getting them up to speed, but as usual, I persisted. The whole solo is just a beautiful mix of melody and speed. Everything a good jazz fusion solo should be. Now, I'm going to shift gears here just a little bit, but still with regards to this particular solo. Now, in the grand scheme of things, my YouTube channel is still pretty small, and I'm always hoping for that bump, you know, that might come one day from a bigger YouTuber than myself, you know, that might give me a mention on their channel. But today, I'm going to see if I can help out a YouTuber who right now is much smaller than I am. He is a jazz fusion guitarist instructor named Christian, and his YouTube handle is Logi, and his channel is called Logi Sounds. This guy did a 5-part, 2.5-hour video series on this solo alone, breaking down every aspect of it in amazing detail. much of it going way over my head. But like I said, I'm not a jazz guitar player and I'm not heavy into theory. But this guy Logie is articulate, knowledgeable, and an amazing player to boot, with a vast knowledge of jazz guitar music theory, if that's your thing. And the guy can seriously talk. This guy can prattle on for ages without losing his train of thought or making edits in his video. Really remarkable. Really knows his stuff inside and out. Guy's got like 135 videos on his channel and is sitting at about 1,000 subs. And his videos only get maybe a few hundred views each. And I really enjoy his teaching style and clear explanations and enthusiasm, and would love to send a bit of attention his way. So please go check him out, Logie Sounds. But especially his 5-parter on this solo. Informative and fascinating stuff, if not extremely complex at times. I'll put a link to part 1 of his breakdown of this solo down in the description box if you'd like to check it out. And if you like what you see, you can, navigate through his channel from there. Well, that is it for now. Hope you enjoyed my take on this classic Carlos Rios Gino Vannelli solo, To Brother to Brother. Stay safe out there, and stay safe and well in your little guitar corner of the world, and we will see you next time. Cheers.